From Bitcoin, blockchain, or distributed ledger technology to cryptocurrencies, tokens, and initial coin offerings, it seems everyone involved has something to say, but can you really trust their advice? One man's had enough of weasel words and charlatans and is ready to give you impartial, independent analysis. With digestible blockchain bites, ICO analysis, and need-to-know news on cryptocurrencies, author, speaker, transparency and clarity advocate, and award-winning software innovator, Barry James brings you Radio ICO.
Hello, it's Barry James again with Blockchain Bytes for ICO Radio, and I'm here to talk about Kora. Delighted to be with two of the co-founders, Maomao Hu and Dickson Nsofor. Welcome both.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having us on.
So it's great to have you. Would you each please just talk a little bit about your background and how you came to Kora and kind of, you know, where the idea came from? What got you into it?
Yeah, you want to start, Dickson?
Sure. So Dickson had my early education in Nigeria, Covenant University to be precise. Spent some of my time in China getting my MBA, and then moved over to start my first financial inclusion startup as well as a mobile phone tech startup in Western Africa.
Cool.
And worked at the United Nations and co-founded Kora. And where we got the idea of name Kora is that Kora is a musical instrument normally used to play songs of melody, songs of celebration, you know, within the West African region. And when we were thinking about building an infrastructure, we thought about, you know, having a story behind our infrastructure, it being a story of hope. It's hope for a celebration, hope for a melody through the technology we provide across this region. So that's why we have the name Kora.
Great. Okay. And Maomao, how about you?
Yeah. So my background, you know, I went to university. I went to public school in China, and then went to university in New York for graphic design. And then my last year of graphic design, you know, I was quite heavily affected by the Occupy Wall Street movement. My last year, I felt that design really didn't make a huge impact in the world. And so I ended up leaving that to try to get a job in finance. So I was lucky enough to join as a management consultant, this consulting firm that as a graphic designer. I worked there for 2 weeks and got shipped off to Morgan Stanley for a year and a half, where I did 2 projects. And I left that to co-found an AI company, and which just didn't quite work out. We were basically selling software to hedge funds. And I left that in April to I felt that, you know, blockchain really did. First of all, they really have a much bigger impact than what we're doing on eking out like 5 or 10% more profitability for these organizations. And I just saw that there was a huge shift coming on in crypto, and unlike AI, which I still love very much, but AI, the bulk of the impact I think is going to be felt by the big 5. And so the ones that have the greatest amount of data and the greatest amount of funding to get the best kind of researchers. I think in crypto there's much more opportunity for grassroots change to come along, and so end up moving the shift over there.
Yeah, well, as you know, we've been exploring some of that massive shift that's coming along in so many different ways. But would you, for those who've not come across Kora yet, would you just, Maomao, as you did so succinctly at the Team Blockchain event recently, just describe for us what exactly it is and why it should exist?
Yeah. So, I mean, the goal for Kora is simple. We just want to provide low cost and equal access to financial services to as many people as possible. And so the way we're doing that, and so that basically describes what we consider an inclusive financial system, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone's included on an equal footing.
Yeah.
And so Kora is infrastructure for inclusive financial systems. Specifically, it's we're building our own blockchain, and we're embedding functionality for identity and for money transfer and for co-op groups and for lending into the blockchain, where they're going to be accessed by anyone who can access the blockchain.
Mm.
And then we're helping people access the blockchain without internet by going through telecom networks. So you put those two together, and hopefully you get low cost and equal access to financial services.
And you talked a bit about the current project and what that might mean for the participants who are farmers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a really interesting project going on in Nigeria. Interesting for many reasons, and that's with 300 farmers. And the problem they face right now is that they have to, they live in the city called Kaduna, but their financer is in Abuja, which is 2.5 hours away.
Mm.
And so every 2 weeks they drive 2.5 hours over to Abuja to get their money, which is obviously is very, it's expensive, and it's inconvenient, and it's risky, and it's not good for the financer either, because they need to keep people coming in and giving them cash and then hoping that it gets to the right hands, and it's just not a great situation for either side.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing there is we're using Kora to facilitate digital payments to the farmers and local cash out in cash, so they don't have to make the trip.
Okay, great. And how is this going to affect the kind of overall cost structure?
The overall cost structure, it's interesting.
Yeah. That's gonna lower the cost, right?
Yeah. So, well, any conversation for cost gets a bit complicated, because here, the ultimate economic mechanism of Kora is trying to lower the cost to serve, to make it profitable to serve everyone.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, we live in a capitalist society, and that's kind of mechanism that we think is going to have a larger and more sustainable impact.
Yeah.
And so specifically, it's not like the banks couldn't serve the farmers if they really wanted to. The unit economics just don't work out. And so what Kora does is it minimizes the capex and the setup cost to basically zero. To kind of bring in a new market segment, and also it also lowers the marginal cost. So in macro terms, it's kind of changing a capex conversation to an opex conversation, while still seeing revenue growth. So that's kind of the way we see it from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, and then looking at it from another point of view, from on the ground, first of all in Nigeria, and its its potential there. Dickson, perhaps you'd like to talk a little bit about that, its potential there, and beyond, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, our target markets for the beta are farmers, right? Why do we choose farmers? Because in the pyramid of financial inclusion, farmers are the least. They have been less served in this economic structure. And yet they do the most work. So what would be the impact of what we're doing? We are using the blockchain as well as USSD codes, which means they don't need a smartphone or they don't need an internet access to provide these services to them remotely. And we're working with various stakeholders within the regulatory frameworks in this country to do that. Now, the impact of that is the ability for someone to receive his payments, which he normally receives within the next day or two, but now he can receive it at the same time, in like real time, like within 3 to 5 minutes, right? And can actually spend that cash. It goes a long way for these people in that region. One, in terms of paying for their own bills, mobile phone top, or paying for their medical bills. Even it goes down to the kind of quality of life that they live, because when they receive their payments on time, they can eventually take care of their bills on time.
Okay. And
now we are facilitating. Yeah.
Yeah, you say you don't even need a mobile phone.
Yeah. No,
How does
you
that
need
work?
you need a mobile phone, but you don't need a phone, right? So through USSD access, USSD is something like a *347#
I got you.
one something. So like I'm definitely sure you heard of M-Pesa in Kenya. So similar to what M-Pesa does, right? That's similar to what Kora is doing in this market, using licensed operators to provide the service in this market. But the only difference is that people riding on the Kora network, which is the Kora blockchain, will be able to interact with various other providers, and not just providers in this country, but providers cross-border within the regulatory frameworks. So that is the power of what we're doing. We're enabling people who never had access to proper banking to be able to receive payments, send payments, make bill payments via their own convenience now, remotely.
Okay, so first of all, you're providing services to people the banks haven't been interested in providing services to before, and there's a certain amount of impact, in that alone. But Maomao, from what you told me when we last met, there's also the potential to remove layers of cost and from intermediaries as well.
Absolutely. So, if you look at a project that we're looking at in Kenya, so Kenya, like Dickson said, has M-Pesa, has actually pretty sophisticated mobile payments, but we still haven't seen kind of the economic growth that we would have expected from this widespread digital financial services. And if you kind of dig into why that is, when a farmer, when they grow all their produce, they ship it to a co-op who kind of takes it off their hands. The co-op pays a logistics company to ship it to the market yard. Then they have to pay a broker at the market yard to sell the produce, and then they get their money from the exporter maybe a few weeks later. And that payment's not instantaneously, but you have all these layers in between and drag out when the farmer gets paid and take out their cut from their profit margin. And so what we're doing there is, we're trying to set up these communal financial services groups that we call CVNs, community value networks, which are really all about let's pull our capital, let's pull our equipment, let's pull our labor, and try to reach economies of scale, which is something you see people do already, just not without the radical transparency that you get from the blockchain. And the second thing we're trying to do there is connecting exporters and farmers directly, where payment can be made as soon as the produce has been inspected, and then it's really connecting the payment directly with the value producer. And each piece, it's not like we're completely cutting out each piece in the cycle, because ultimately you do need someone to take it to the market yard, and you do need someone to sell it to you. We're just taking away their ability to jack up the price as a gatekeeper and make them more properly align the value they provide with the prices they charge.
Okay, so it's not just a means of transacting then, it's also a means of coming together to do some of the sort of supply chain and marketing type things that introduce some of those additional costs.
Absolutely. It's infrastructure for inclusive financial systems.
Excellent. Okay. So moving on for a moment to your coin or your token. Can you tell me a bit about that? Is it a utility token or a security token? What is it? And what role will it play beyond just the raising of the money?
Yeah, so token plays a pretty central role in our whole system, because we're building our own blockchain. And so, right off the bat, from a basic crypto economic standpoint, you need a token that has value to be able to secure your blockchain. On top of that, we need something that's obviously high performant and has certain requirements for data privacy. And so, long story short, we are using a consensus algorithm where we're using the token as a staking token, or putting up as collateral to increase the economic costs of behaving maliciously. And stakers, in return, will get a share of the block rewards, and so, as well as the transaction fees. And so, essentially, when you're buying the token and you're staking it, if you're just trading it, that's a different story. But if you're staking it, you're essentially buying a stake of the network, or at least that's how we see our token.
Hmm. So is it it's a usage token or a security token?
It's certainly not a security token.
Okay.
So, well, to get a bit more into exactly the role it plays, so you would need to put up some amount of tokens as collateral to become a validator.
Yeah.
You would delegate your token to other validators to show your approval and have them join the consensus process.
Yeah.
You would use the token as gas to pay for transaction fees.
Yeah.
And you would receive the token as block rewards.
Okay, so it fuels the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. And tell us a little bit about, who are the people who are, who are going to be most interested in this coin or token and the ICO. I'd probably, ask you both this question. So, Dickson, maybe you'd like to start.
Yeah, Barry. So first off, if we really want to be honest here, then most token holders at this stage of the blockchain economy are people that hold it for speculative reasons, meaning that they are day traders or crypto contributors that feel that this project will be successful in the future. Lots of projects are going to ride on this project.
Yeah.
And it's going to have an intrinsic value over time. But that's not our target market right now.
Yeah.
So at Kora, our target market for our tokens are people who are quite tech savvy that would be able to run Kora nodes and help do our validation process. Those who would actually delegate their tokens to other validators to ensure that the network is secure. And those are actually the people we are looking at to hold the tokens, as well as other financial service providers, because we will be working a whole lot of financial service providers. It's going to pay them to actually run a node and hold some KNT to ensure that the security of the network is prime, and that the transactions that they are passing through the network actually go through probably being verified by them as well.
Okay, cool. And what kind of organizational person might that be who would, be likely to be interested in running one of these nodes? Maomao, perhaps.
Yeah. So, it's really two sides to that. So on one side, we have the best person to run a node is someone who has previous experience with data centers, or with PC hardware, who understands how to build high performance systems with high bandwidth and high uptime.
Yeah.
And then the other side is, ultimately the amount of tokens that the people who are running nodes actually hold is relatively small. It's really up for the rest of the community to kind of surveil them and to see which block producers are honest and have our experience, and to delegate their token to them. So on that side, it's really anyone that has an active interest in the growth of the ecosystem and in taking essentially almost an active role in the community.
Okay. And beyond speculative investors and people who might like to play that role of running nodes and so on, what about other people who actually maybe motivated about the impact? Are they part of your picture as well?
I would think absolutely, because ultimately what we need our community to help with in the proper function of the network is to have, ultimately we need them to have a vested interest in the continuing function of the network and the continued growth of the network. And I don't think there's any better role to do that than people that have an interest in the impact and expanding, getting more users on board and bringing more financial services to them.
So looking forward, I'd maybe like to just talk a little bit about where you are right now, how far you've got, and then looking forward, what's the vision, beyond the current project in Nigeria, and what does the vision, the future you're looking for, what's that look like?
Where we are right now, we've successfully pulled through we're putting up the Kora Network on a small testnet. We have our MVPs, the mobile app running right now on iOS and Android, and it's plugged to Ethereum testnet. You can check that out on Google. We are currently running the beta. We have other various products under Kora, Kora Pay, Kora Money, and we will be rolling them out as we move ahead. But the big deal and the big vision about Kora is that we believe that we can shrink the whole world into a small financial service village, meaning that people shouldn't have to be served more because they're from one particular region, and people shouldn't have access to special treatment based on financial services because they're from another region. Meaning we want to be that turnkey solution for providers to serve their customers and also serve the underserved regions. We envision a day that Kora will be the infrastructure to power 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 providers across 100, 150 countries doing micro cross-border payments all on one network. So that's our grand vision, and we think we can make a remarkable step towards this within the next 5 years.
Great. So this isn't just ultimately about underserved markets. It goes beyond that too.
Exactly, because even the underserved markets, when we speak about remittance, people always speak of remittance from the receiving end, but there's always a sending end of remittance. Remittance is like $600 billion market size right now. But people receiving remittance are receiving from someone sending the remittance. So it's a two-part to this flow, right? It's like a marketplace, a market maker and a taker, right? So it's a sender and a receiver. So we want to eventually build this infrastructure that serves whoever is doing the sending and the receiving to do it more conveniently without restrictions across whatever geographical region there is. And we believe we can achieve that scale with the power of the blockchain.
Great. Okay. And if, I'm one of the listeners and I'd like to get involved in this, by the way, what's the minimum investment?
So at this point in time, right now, like we are doing a pre-sale, and we closed our $1 million round in December. We're doing a $3 million round kicking off sometime next week, and the minimum investment is $5,000. But if you do not have up to $5,000 to contribute or to support the project, please look forward to our main sale. It's going to be happening sometime end of March. And you can contribute as little as $1, $10, whatever you have to contribute to the project. You can do that.
Okay, well, we're right at the end of February right now. So by the time listeners hear this, that they may well be able to come and find you. But before we talk about how to do that, just casting forward to the next stage that you mentioned, what should people do now? Is there a whitelist? Should they be on the whitelist?
Yeah, exactly. So all they need to do right now is go to Kora.network, sign up on the whitelist, and we'll reach out to you. We are currently oversubscribed by 500%, but we are offering our pre-sale based on the first come, first serve basis. Like those who signed up earlier in the whitelist receive an invite to contribute earlier than those who contribute later. So we will be reaching out to the whitelist. The whitelist is at Kora.network, and right on the homepage you can sign up for the whitelist. Okay,
well, we'll talk about the details of the URLs and stuff in a moment. But just before we move to that and to the end of the interview, perhaps you'd both like to tell us, what are the other messages from you or from Kora that you'd like to tell listeners? Maomao, do you want to start?
What other messages? I mean, ultimately, Kora is our message. This is our view on how we think financial services should be. It's the original motto for Kora way back in the day when we started was financial services as a human right, which we ended up abandoning because everyone thought we were an NGO.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's ultimately the goal, is to make financial services not just a utility, but something that every person is entitled to. And, another thing we say is that, talent is not, talent is normally distributed and opportunity is not. And I think that, that really creates a lot of the imbalance that we see in the world today. And so we want to kind of realign those a bit more fairly, make opportunity more accessible to everyone. And that's really what the ultimate goal of Kora is about.
Yeah, I kind of understand the little marketing problem there, but that's a very strong statement and a really important one, that financial services being a human right, because that's the way the world works now, isn't it?
Well, right now financial services, it's denied to many people, right?
Yeah.
But we don't want to change that around.
Okay, Dickson, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would say Mama was spot on, right? Kora is our message. And with Kora, we are trying to say to the world that we understand that talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. And we think, or we believe, that with our message to the world, Kora, we can create good opportunity for people to see the talent that every other person has, by providing financial service to everyone. So my message to everyone is to keep up with Kora. Kora is a message deep down from our hearts. We love this project. We believe in this project. We are from literally from emerging economies, and we understand how this problem is, and we think we can solve it with a good community and with a good support from the team and from everyone around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you know from our previous conversations, at least with you, Maomao, I'm tremendously impressed by the vision behind this. I think it's very much needed, and I'll be watching your progress with close interest. So where do we go? What's the URL? It's Kora.foundation, is that right?
It's Kora.foundation that redirects to what is the URL now, which is Kora.network. That's KORA.network. And you can join our Telegram there, join our Facebook, join our Twitter, and hopefully become part of our community.
Kora, KORA.network.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you both for spending time with me today. And as I say, I wish you really well and the project really well. And I look forward to seeing what you can do in terms of changing the world.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Bye for now.
ICO Radio was brought to you by author, speaker, transparency and clarity advocate, and award-winning software innovator Barry James. Get in touch with the programme, put yourself or someone else forward as a guest, visit iconewsdesk.com. And if you've enjoyed the show, please leave a review. And don't forget to subscribe to get your next insights and interviews from the ICO Radio podcast.